If anyone's going to mention that shows like Raven's Home and Bucked have overstayed their welcome because they're officially the only It's a Laugh production shows that reached above 4 seasons, then to be perfectly honest, this is literally what Disney can do when it comes to sitcoms, regardless if it's teen or family. I'm just saying this right now, the way I see it, this show, mainly Raven's Home, which is a spin-off or a sequel towards That's So Raven, really feels like the show that it can gain the popularity of Disney sitcoms like it used to back in the day. But for me personally, it's just basically Disney Channel doing its own thing when it comes to sitcoms, considering that Bucked have multiple cast changes once season 3 came to an end, and when season 4 and onward, I have to admit, I actually wished that the cast of Raven's Home, mainly Raven and Chelsea, met the cast of characters from Bucked, which was seasons 1 through 3, which you all know I'm referring to, the Jesse characters, but I have to be perfectly honest with you, for what Bucked is at the moment after season 3, it's just basically having its own identity to the point that they just went to a different location involving horses, and to be real with you, season 6 of Bucked, even if I did not watch an episode of it, sums up of what Disney sitcoms are doing at the moment when it comes to creating new sitcoms. But moving past that, since that Raven's Home has multiple Christmas episodes, while That's So Raven only had one, which I reviewed 4 years ago, Bah Humbugged is basically the definition of the siblings of two families that the wives got divorced because of their choices, which I've learned from experience from watching the first episode, can instantly be the same as the parents regardless. And for me personally, one of the characters in this who does snooping while also doing different holidays, one, basically Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, I have to be perfectly honest, Hanukkah and Kwanzaa are the holidays I know the least, and the fact that Booker is doing most of this stuff in this episode, I can guarantee you that if I ever see an episode that doesn't center around one of the characters who are psychic dealing with situations without the visions going against them in these scenarios, then it's official that Raven's Home is basically That's So Raven 2, or what the original plans of the That's So Raven subplot was when That's So Raven came to an end, when Raven was about to go to college, but we ended up with Corey in the house instead. Booker's vision is that he saw his mother and father getting back together during the holidays, which he assumes that it's either a Christmas star for the tree or the wedding ring, even though it's kind of odd to do a proposal after a divorce, but to be perfectly real with you, Booker is basically me wherever I do so many stuff at one time. Like, seriously. Every time I look at Booker in this episode, I always imagine myself just doing everything just to make everyone happy, even when it comes to being a psychic. Seriously, it's honestly humorous at the fact that he even allowed A Christmas Carol, which is basically Sano's, in the hallway outside of the apartment for the sake of just trying to get his mother and father back together. But at the end of the day, Raven is still Raven, even as a mother, and to be perfectly honest with you, this is one of the reasons onto why people have been watching this show, because they're fans of That's So Raven, and when it comes to newer fans, it's mostly debatable if you enjoy the show when it comes to the siblings, but let's be real, without Raven, then this show wouldn't be a thing, considering that the title of the show is Raven's Home. But getting into the siblings, mainly Booker, I only know some of the personality. Like, I watched the first episode, I watched the crossover between this and Bucked, which I wish that it has the Jesse characters, and this episode. Granted, I could have watched more episodes to understand the development, but the way I see it, it really feels like that they're just trying to carry the show on their own, which isn't a problem completely. Like, if this show is trying to condemn itself for being a different show compared to That's So Raven, then people really need to understand that Booker and the other characters have something to contribute. Levi and Tess snooping the gifts even though that they're in charge of protecting the gifts until Christmas morning. And when they accidentally break one of the gifts, which is a video game console, they're in deep trouble. And for me personally, I was one of those people, but I didn't open the gifts. All I did was just, during the nighttime before Christmas morning, I just look downstairs and look at the gifts, and I just go back in my room. So I am a snooper, but at the same time, not on the same levels as these children. If you ask me, the fact that Booker wants so many people to make this a great Christmas for the whole family, which is 2, and the fact that they're having a difficult time putting everything together because of Booker's vision of just trying to have Raven and Devon back together, really goes to show that Booker is always desperate for a Christmas moment. Just like the rest of us, even though that there are so many Christmas moments in the family before Christmas. As for Raven and Garrett accidentally slip Raven's grandmother's ginger snap recipe list in the cookie mixer to the point that now there is no point of return to make this a perfect Christmas, Hanukkah, or Kwanzaa holiday for both families. I gotta be perfectly honest with you. Whenever this type of stuff happens during the Christmas season, it is bound to happen because it's basically what we've all dealt with just days before Christmas arrives when it comes to going to our families or anything that we do to celebrate Christmas. When it comes to Chelsea and Devon, it's every other parent, friend, or anyone else's nightmare if they bought the same gift for that certain someone. I gotta be perfectly real with you. How do we never got a That's So Raven episode centering around this type of plot? I mean, think about it. The fact that Booker's vision isn't what that he thought upon seeing the vision at first sight is basically a good indication that this would have been a That's So Raven episode, regardless if That's So Raven always had a Christmas episode. Granted, it may have to center around the character changes and whatnot, but seriously, this is a demonstration of what a That's So Raven episode really is, regardless if not all the characters have returned. Literally, Raven, Chelsea, and Devon are the only characters while the rest are brand new. With this episode being the one that I picked over the other Christmas episodes, goes to show that this really fits the That's So Raven charm. Even though that what I said earlier that this would have been like a That's So Raven episode, but for what this episode is, being a Raven's Home episode, goes to show that they put effort into this episode. And for me personally, you should really give this episode a chance whenever you are into Raven's Home for the first time after watching all the episodes of That's So Raven. And since that everything just turned out normal from the characters' eyes like they witnessed in the past, goes to show that I really enjoyed this episode completely, especially the ending. Well, Leigh and Tess thought that the gift that they got, which is a video game console, is where they're gonna get busted, but as it turns out, that system was already broken due to a situation involving the other characters dealing with when it comes to shipping or whatnot. I'm just saying, this is basically the demonstration of what Christmas is like when it comes to craziness and frustrations in order to make a holiday good for the entire family or two. Too well, it could lead to chaos, but also a wonderful life at the end. To be perfectly honest, I'm not interested into watching more episodes unless the episodes are mostly holiday episodes or episodes that caught my interest the most. But that's just basically how it is when it comes to shows like this, where my binge watching experience has becoming lowered compared to my old binge watching times in the past. But to be honest with you, this episode really does so much for all the characters during the season of the holidays, and it made me appreciate this episode a lot more. Like, it's impressive that they just cram in everything in 22 minutes, which is much of an accomplishment if you're willing to tackle nearly every single character. So overall, I'm giving this episode an 8 out of 10. And when it comes to celebrate multiple holidays in 1 month or a few days, all I can say is that don't take any advices from any of the characters, especially Burgle.